Welcome, everybody. My name is Sandy Porter. I'm going to be your facilitator for this evening. Thank you for coming out and taking the time to come out and hear about Bill's C-10. We have a couple of questions for the community members here tonight before we get started. And one of them is reporting of the press. I'd like to ask whether the community members here want the discussion here reported by the press. It's considered a community strategy session. And community strategy sessions usually are internal, so we do have the press here, and that's something that we would like to get some direction from the community members. While you're thinking about that, there's some information at the back, some literature, there's some resolutions, listing of MPs, and other information. If we run out of information at the back, the Chief's Office is prepared to provide some additional copies. So the purpose of the meeting is to do some information sharing on Bill C-10. I believe that everybody has definitely heard about it, has a lot of concerns about it. We want to give, Council's going to give an update on Bill C-10. We have members of the Council. We have Chief Bill here as well. We want to get, most importantly, we want to get some feedback from the community and direction from the community. At least some kind of initial discussion and some initial direction. We'll do a brief slide presentation, and we also want to spend some time in an open forum to give the floor to the community members to provide some comments, some concerns that you have. That's what the whole meeting is all about tonight, is to hear what the community has to say. And hopefully we'll get wrapped up by 8:45 or sooner. Anyone have any questions at all? Very quiet. Yeah, before we get started. Okay, Artie Martin is with us. I think he's going to do. Don't be surprised if you see his equipment. He's going to do a little bit of taking, I guess. So with that, we'll start with the slide presentation. Eliza, can you help us with the slide presentation? Chief.
Okay. I'm just going to stand over here. I'm just going to walk you through this slide presentation that Eliza and some other people will put together. Paparazzi here. I'm assuming that since nobody said anything, you're all okay with the media being here? Okay. Okay, we're just going to run through this, and it's just mainly an information session. And as Sandy said, this is the first meeting we're having on Bill C-10. It's more of a strategy session. We want to hear back from the community. I mean, it's going to affect a lot of people in the community, so we want to see what does the community have to say about this. But what we're going to do is just give you the information that we know. Bill C-10, again, is being proposed by the Hartford government. This is just an indication of how the bill becomes law, and I think there are copies of this back at the back if anybody wants to take it with them. On the House of Commons, and one thing I want to say right now is that the whole situation in Ottawa is a numbers game. The government in now, the Harper government, is a conservative government that has a majority. So in the House of Commons, they've got the most numbers. In the Senate, they have the most numbers. So, and Harper runs his government by telling them, you vote the way I want you to vote, and you all vote the same way. Which means that the opposition, the NDP and the Liberal, and the one independent who's sitting there, can all vote against this bill and still get defeated. Because the government has got more numbers than they do, more members. So we're dealing with a majority government here, and that's why they're ramming through all kinds of legislation just because they can, just because they have the numbers. And that's the scary thing about this bill. So this is the process, how a bill becomes law. First it goes through the House of Commons. It's introduced by someone in the government, goes through first reading, goes through second reading, there's a debate, and then it goes to committee stage where there are some hearings. They have people that can go and make presentations, they're called witnesses at the hearings. Then there's a report stage where the committee can make amendments if they want. Then it's debated by the House. It's the House of Commons when we say the House. And then it's third reading, which is debated the final time, and after the third reading, then it's sent to the Senate. And it'll go through the same process in the Senate. The Senate could, though, do away without the hearing part. So that's one of the things we need to do is push for them to have hearings and then get on the witnesses to make a presentation. So once it goes through the House of Commons, then it will go to the Senate, same process, it'll be introduced, first reading, second reading, debate, committee stage, report stage, and third reading. And once the Senate passes it, then it goes through passage, it gets royal assent, and becomes an act of parliament, and then it comes into force on whichever day the government decides. What stage is Bill C-10 in right now? It was originally introduced in the Senate as a Bill S-16. That's why it has S. The other one has C because then it was introduced in the House of Commons. So Bill S-16 was introduced in the Senate, but it died on the order paper when the government prorogued. That means that the government broke, either last spring or whatever it was, when they took a break. So that's it. So everything that's on the order paper when the government prorogues, that's what they call it, or it breaks, that dies. So they introduced it again in November, last November, for first reading in the House, and then second reading was on November 5th. And it's now, and then it went to committee stage in December. Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights is the standing committee that's dealing with it, and it held 4 meetings, only 4 meetings. It didn't travel around, it just held hearings in Audubon. People could go there and make presentations. And I do know that AFN made a presentation. I think we had copies of that back there. Ganawagi made a presentation, and Akwesasne made a presentation. We didn't make a presentation because I think that was in the change, right around the time of our election, the change over to the new council. So, but we're aware of, in the Iroquois caucus, 6 nations joined with the other elected councils and the other Iroquois communities, Ganawagi, Ganazadagi, Akwesasne, Tayan, Mega, Oneida, and Wata, and us. And we had made application to make a joint presentation, and our application was denied. So the report was tabled February 12th, 2014, and there were no amendments recommended. Again, this is where the majority comes in and saying we're not accepting any amendments. And third reading is not happened yet. It could be there. Eliza is checking every day the order paper to see if it's done, but we don't know when it can be done. It could be done at any time, but it's not happened yet. The next steps after the third reading in the House, it'll go to the Senate, and then that whole process will be repeated again, where they have first reading, second reading, third reading. And then, as I said, Senate, we're hoping we're going to have to push, one of the things that we need to do is push for the Senate to have hearings. I was talking to an MP last week I saw in Toronto, and asked her if she thought that the Senate would have hearings on Bill C-10, and she said, well, you have to push, because the Senate can just say, we're not going to have any hearings. We're just going to go right to third reading and pass it. So what we need to do is meet with senators and others to say, we need to have hearings on it so people can come and make presentations. So that's going to be our first task. So then the Senate committee meetings, and then again, after, if they pass it, then it goes through a royal assent and comes into force. So the bill is not passed yet. It's that third reading, it's still in the House of Commons. So there is a process that it still has to go through to become law. Now, an overview of the bill. Some of you probably already know this because I think probably a lot of you have already studied it. It amends the criminal code, and what it says is that all tobacco products or raw leaf tobacco must be stamped. And I think it says it's stamped in accordance with the Excise Act. Because I was just talking to Eliza and I said, well, we can put a stamp on it. But she said it has to be a stamp on the Excise Act. Any person selling, offering for sale, transporting, delivering, distributing, or possessing unstamped tobacco product or raw leaf tobacco will be in contravention of the Act. It will create mandatory minimum sentences for convictions, and it outlines the limits of 10,000 cigarettes or more, which are approximately 50 cartons, or 10 kilograms or more of tobacco products, or 10 kilograms or more of raw leaf tobacco. A hybrid offense, which means the Crown can proceed by a summary conviction or an indictment. A summary conviction is less serious and it's a shorter process, and an indictment is more serious and there's more procedures. If anybody has questions on this part of it, I'm looking at Eliza to answer. She's a lawyer. Summary convictions, the first offense and every conviction after, there would be no minimum sentence. The first offense would be 6 months jail, max, 2 years probation and/or a fine. The indictable offenses, these are the more serious ones. The first offense could be no minimum, and it could be a 5 years max. Second offense, 90 days minimum. Third offense, 6 month minimum. Fourth offense, 2 years less a day. Why is this bill an issue? Contraband tobacco is what the government is calling it. I've always said there is no such thing as contraband, and so that's what they're calling it, contraband tobacco, and then they also make reference to organized crime, that it will help, that contraband tobacco is attracting organized crime, so that's the excuse they use, I guess, as to why they want this bill, to help combat organized crime. So versus the First Nations tobacco trade. How will this impact Six Nations? It'll attack our right to self-determination. It'll criminalize our inherent right to a traditional trade activity, because we've always traded in tobacco. It nullifies the principle of Gladue and Appealing. Gladue and Appealing are 2 Supreme Court Canada cases that recognize the over-incarceration and alienation of Ungohumri people in the Canadian criminal justice system. Like, we all know that, you know, we have a high population of our people that are in the jails, in the prisons, in the maximum security. So these 2 court cases are in reference to that. And what it says is that when the criminal justice system is sentencing people, or our people are in front of the criminal justice, the Canadian criminal justice system, that the judges need to take, or the sentencing must consider the unique situation of First Nations and the effects of colonization when they are deciding what kind of sentence they're going to put on people. So this is going to nullify that. How will this impact? Growth, production, and retail will be impacted. Any decreases will result in decreasing employment. We all know how much the industry employs, how many people the industry employs, not only in our community, but in the other communities. The unemployment rates will increase, and the spending powers will decrease. The impacts to the local and surrounding, there will be impacts to the local, surrounding retail, industry, and agriculture, and the future industry development will be threatened. What has been done so far? Six Nations Elected Council has signed a resolution with the other Iroquois communities denouncing Bill C-10. Everybody from each community has signed that, and that's been sent all over the place. As I said earlier, we had sought to be a witness during hearings, the House of Commons hearings that were held in, I think, December, but we were denied. Six Nations Elected Council has also taken a position on it, that they're denouncing it and sent it. I recently sent a letter to the Minister of Public Safety, Stephen Blaney, to ask for a meeting on this. And we will seek to be a witness at the Senate Standing Committee if they're going to hold hearings. We'll also work with working with the Iroquois Caucus, who are meeting next week. We're going to be talking about this and doing more own strategizing to develop a lobby strategy so that we can meet with MPs and senators on Parliament Hill, and also the Chiefs of Ontario. We also sit with a group, the Grand Chiefs of the Association of Iroquois Island Indians, the Union of Ontario Indians, the Anishinaabe Nation, Grand Council Treaty Number 3, which covers the whole province. We meet with them regularly, and we're a member of their committee, and they are also issuing letters on the same thing, opposing Bill C-10. In fact, I just got this afternoon one from the Ontario Regional Chief and one from the Grand Chief of the Anishinaabe Nation, Patrick McDonald, both opposing Bill C-10 and sending that out to the government. So we're working, all working together to try and, to develop a strong strategy, because if we go up there jointly together to meet with senators, I think it's going to make a bigger impression than if we go as one community. Public relations strategy, I think we need to really come up with a good PR communication strategy, because I think right now you see small convenience stores, retailers association, whatever it is, they're doing their own campaign strategy. They've got their own billboards out there. They've got lots of money to do everything like this, because they're all supporting the C-10. So, and the Chiefs of Ontario is also looking to help develop a media campaign using videos, billboards, advertisement. All this stuff's going to cost money. So we need to get to mainstream media and get to them, get our message to them, and to counter what these other people are saying. The other thing we're doing with the other Ear Club meetings, we're looking at developing protocols so that we're saying that we have the right to trade with them, nation to nation. Like between Ganawagi, Ganasataki, and that's something we've been talking about, that we should be able to take whatever goods we have here and trade with them without being interfered with by the government in Canada. So that's something we're talking about. And international strategies, the UN has a permanent forum on Indigenous issues, which is held in New York City in May every year. So I think we need to take that message also to the international level. What can you do? Letter writing, well, this is just a start. This is just some ideas we're starting, because we want to hear from you as to what you want to see done. We're looking at the political strategy where we have connections and we know how it works, but we need to hear from you. But these are just some things. Letter writing campaign always helps, and we just threw together a short template in the back. If people want to just sign it and send it up to themselves, send it to the Prime Minister, send it to Phil McCollum, send it to whoever. You can use that, or you can do your own. I know when we did we recently did one on education, because they were trying to impose the First Nations Education Act on us, and they're still trying to. So we're fighting all kinds of imposed legislation, but we did a little postcard for the Education Act, and people could just pick that up and sign it. And if you mail something to the Prime Minister or anybody, you don't need to put a stamp on it. You just throw it in the mail. Participating in lobbying a government, and I'd like to say that if we, when we do get lobby meetings, like if we need to take a week in Ottawa and get staff to set up as many meetings as we can that week, I would like to take some people involved in the industry who are going to be severely impacted by this, so that they can give their own stories to the politicians. I think they can probably do it with more passion. And participate in media strategies. How can you participate in media strategies? Like helping get out the story out there, do videos, do interviews, that kind of stuff, to help get the message out there. Is that it? So, community input. Now it's time to strategize on what we want to do. That's what it is right now. It's not passed yet, so we've got some work to do. It's going to have serious implications for our community, so we want to hear back from you on some of the ideas on what we can do, where we go from here. Who wants to go first? I'm giving it back to Sandy, because he's going to moderate.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Okay, we want to open it up to the floor and hear some comments, concerns, questions from our community. So hope you feel comfortable in expressing what you want to express tonight. As Chief has indicated, this bill here can have some serious impacts on our community. It can have some impacts on the immediate family, extended family, in a lot of aspects. So, and things are going very well here in our community. When you look at what the industry has done and what kind of potential it has. So, and unfortunately, the government sometimes, they proceed with their legislation, their laws, that's going to protect their interests. And sometimes, oftentimes, laws get passed through their process relatively quickly when it's something that's advantage to us. If they want to process a law, they can process a law very quickly. And that's something that definitely we should be concerned about, considering the status of Bill C-10. So it's pretty serious. I'm not sure whether you want to take a few minutes and talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes, and then we'll come back. I'm not sure what you want to do, but we're waiting here, the council's waiting here, and to hear some of your comments, your questions, your concerns. Any ideas? Go ahead, at the back, go ahead.
After the third hearing, how long will it be? Going from the top to the bottom before you said it?
She's saying matter of days, could be right away. I think the timeline is something that's controlled by the federal government.
Just say that they are sitting in the House now. They'll sit until probably the end of June, or maybe the third week of June, and then they'll break for the summer. So if they're going to pass it, they're going to probably do it before then. They'll take a week off, I think, in April for Easter. That might be the only time, but they could do it any time. It could move very quickly. But I think that if they're going to pass it, it's probably they're going to try and pass it before they break for the summer.
I thought they had 7 more readings on that.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Al?
7, yeah.
Third reading,
It's got to go to third reading in Royal Assent, in law.
they can move it fast if they want.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on, like the government, they're talking about contraband tobacco. Like, is that a cover for the actual target is First Nation activity, or is there in fact an element of contraband that's valid?
I don't know
You
who
have
could
some
answer
people
that.
in the industry, I can't answer that.
Larry?
I've always taken the position that it is a contraband, but that's the phrase that they use. So, I said some people in the tobacco industry can probably answer that better than me. That's not in there.
Go Larry.
From the initial presentation you made, what I summarized that presentation as being is that there appears to be an opinion that this Bill C-10 is somehow not right, unjust, I don't know what you want to use, wrong thinking. So in that concept, my understanding is that in relationship to indigenous people is unconstitutional by their constitution, not just ours. So I'm wondering, whom are you speaking to in terms of legal analysis, if you will, as to what this represents and how that fits into the greater scheme of how things are supposed to be, not just here on the Grand River, but in the world. So I'd like to hear a commentary on how you perceive that. You're talking about how they can rush through a law. And to me, just that notion itself, the way you're presenting it itself is indicative of something wrong.
Well, C-10, it is a law that's proposed by the federal government. Definitely is not our law. It's something that they have a purpose, they have an agenda, not our agenda. And the council, they have their, when you say who they're talking with, well, it's here, it's right here at Six Nations. That's who we want to talk with. You know, we want to talk with, I mean, there's a piece of legislation out there that's we view as detrimental to our community. And we're looking for, I mean, that's their law, and it has potential to impact us. But we want to hear from community members. And I'm not sure I fully understand.
There's a number of strategies. I mentioned 2 strategies up here. Legal strategy is another one, which we haven't done yet, because you have to hire lawyers to do legal strategy. And I think that's something we're going to talk about with these other groups that we're meeting with, so that maybe people can get one done jointly. But another issue that could be done from the legal perspective is the whole duty to consult and accommodate, which is the Supreme Court of Canada ruling, that if they're going to do anything that is going to affect our rights, and we feel we have the right to trade tobacco with whoever, or to generate revenue in our community, because tobacco is always inherent, it's our inherent right to do it, we can also look at whether they have failed in their duty to consult us, because they never consulted us on it, they're just implementing it. The Assembly of First Nations in Quebec and Labrador are doing that. They're having a judicial review done on the First Nations Education Act legislation, because that was also done without consultation with us. So that's one thing where the Chiefs of Ontario staff are looking at, is whether that same kind of strategy can be used in this, to say, you know, they haven't consulted us on it, so they shouldn't be able to pass it, because they're failing in their duty as is dictated by the Supreme Court of Canada. But legal strategy is another one, and in addition to the political strategy, which is mainly what I talked about here, the communication strategy, public relations strategy, legal strategy is trying to get some legal opinions out there, and then the international strategy. And then I guess the last one is the direct action. So there's, you know, 5 strategies you look at, and direct action is always the last one you use. So.
Okay, the back, go ahead.
You already have 2 lawyers on staff, correct, Ava? Liza and Lonnie, right? We have 2 on-staff lawyers. I don't see why those 2 people couldn't be put on special assignment, and it wouldn't be any additional cost, right? But I don't think you should be going after worrying about the consultation thing. I think you should be looking at the Supreme Court decisions in regards to the constitutionality of an omnibus bill, of which this is a part of. The Supreme Court's already said that it borders unconstitutional, right? So if they've already said it, and it was directed by the Supreme Court to use it very lightly, and yet we've done it. So there are many organizations out there, trade unions are one of them, that are looking at the matter of the whole bill itself being unconstitutional in terms of the health and safety part of it. So I think that that's one of the avenues that we should be looking at, is that it borders on, he really has no direction from the Supreme Court, or the Supreme Court tells him, you can't just make these great big huge bills without giving each one of them due process. Right? And I think, as I said, we've got two lawyers on staff already. Put them, clear the plate. And, you know, even if it's for a short time.
There's also lawyers at Chiefs of Ontario and AFN that can do the same thing, and I think they already are.
I know, but we need to look at it from our perspective here
well,
too.
Thanks for your suggestion, but we'll consider it.
Well,
although our lawyers are, Liza is a lawyer, she's very busy, Lonnie's very busy, as we all know, and it's something that I can take back to council for consideration. But I'm saying there's also other lawyers at the Chiefs of Ontario and Assembly of First Nations that can also assist us.
But what did you say by we need a legal opinion? Do you mean of this community, or
I mean,
all the communities?
If the AFN gets a legal opinion, then that would save us having to pay for it. So when I'm talking about, this whole situation on Bill C-10, it's not only affecting this community, it's affecting other communities. So why don't we work on it jointly and get everybody to pitch in to get a legal strategy done? And if other people are doing a legal strategy, then they can share it with us.
Other comments, questions? Go ahead.
Nobody else wants to talk. I just noticed, like, in every community, like, the fishing industry goes kaput. They send in millions of dollars, or some mining company, something closes, it goes kaput. They send in millions of dollars to put people back to work. Are you asking Bill McColeman or whomever, is he going to be sending millions of dollars here to put all these people that are being put out of work back to work? Because I think that's a legitimate thing. It happens in every community we know of, except in ours. So that's one thing that I'd like to see looked at, or at least asked. And also, I was wondering, who was the chair of the House Committee? You know which MP was the chair?
Chair of Health Committee?
No, I don't, not offhand. This is not, it's a human rights and human justice. No, I don't know offhand.
It's just good. Can you post that on the council site? Who's in charge of the committee? Just that when we put pen to paper, we know who to directly try to write to.
It's a Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights.
But I just want to know who the chair. Okay.
Thanks. Quiller?
I still get stuck on that notion of how the purported law affects people. I really do believe that it's without constitutional authority that they do arrest people of First Nation descent. And since you did raise the question of the Gladue, that concept of the discrepancy in terms of population and presence in the incarceration of indigenous people. And this is just another way of getting our people in jail. Why are you only going after this bill when all of the legislation and implementation of law, bad administration of law on indigenous people is more prevalent than this bill? This is a bigger question than Bill C-10. And when you go around piecemealing things, you don't get to the root of the problems. And that's what I see happening. I attend meetings on education, attend meetings on other issues. We just piecemeal. That's a losing framework.
Next, Larry. Pardon?
I'm trying to get some input from the community. This is a community meeting. It's for you guys. We're all going to be affected by this bill, but I want to hear right from the people who are involved in this industry, because you might get arrested and thrown in jail for 6 months. So what do you want? This is just I'm just putting that out there. Just as so, what do you want us to? We want to do our political strategy. Are people there prepared to come with us? That's one of the questions I want to know. And I think the whole tobacco issue in itself, I think we need to talk about. I'll put this out there too, because when I was at Ganawagi at the Iroquois Caucus meeting, the people involved in the tobacco industry there met on their own, developed their own tobacco law, Ganawagi tobacco law. Is that something we want to look at here? But it was done by the people in the community. The council was there to assist them if they wanted. Is that something we want to look at? I'm looking for feedback on people, because I think we need to do something in our community with the whole industry. Do we want to regulate it and control it ourselves? And then police it ourselves as well. And I think I met with some people in my office and have given sample our copies, because they said we could share their template. I don't think it's fully adopted yet, but it's a place to start. And I think it's kind of similar to what they do at the Seneca Nation over in New York State, where they do a stamping. I think we need to start thinking about that kind of stuff and regulating and controlling it ourselves. So I want to get feedback from people on that. On the political strategy, the council can go ahead and start doing that, but I'll be looking to some people to come with us. But I think the people who are involved in the tobacco industry, I'd really like to get feedback on where do you see us going on this whole tobacco issue.
I think when, back in the early 90s, when there was asbestos in the schools, I think that was a real eye-opener for me. And at the time, I was on council, and I seen when the community came together and they stood united, and they wouldn't send their children in the schools. They stood by one another, and they attended the meetings, and they read the literature, they followed up, they asked questions, they stood together. And we had meetings with the federal government. We made them accountable, we made them responsible. And we got the 3 new schools. But at that time, it took the community. And that will forever stand out in my mind, how at that time, when 6 nations came together, and they stood side by side, and they said, we're not moving. And it was definitely an encouraging time. We signed the contribution agreements for the new schools, down in the old schools. But that was definitely a great thing to see, and I think that's something that would apply to any initiative, any bill, anything that's detrimental at a federal level or provincial level that's going to have an impact on us is how strong we stand together what kind of message that we're going to carry forward. It takes a little bit of thinking, it takes a little bit of commitment, and it starts in small meetings like this. Any other comments or questions? You want to take 5 minutes? Go ahead, sir.
You were this year making up your own tobacco law and this stuff. You were put that question back when they put on this here quota system. That was when, 1980 something? Council had the obligation of making their own tobacco system. And what happened? Same as the Confederacy. They went to sleep on it.
I wasn't here then, so.
Talking about the quota system?
The quota system, yeah, they're talking about that. But they had they had a question by the government if they want to take over the tobacco themselves. And nobody do nothing. Now we're digging our way out of the damn thing again. Now we're digging out. We're never filling over.
Well, maybe we should move forward then. If we are digging out now, well, let's dig out and move forward then. I mean, what's happened in the past happened in the past. I mean, the council has nothing to do with the quota system. By the way, I think they're going to be reviewing that whole quota system, and I don't know what they're going to be doing. I just heard that. But I think, you know, I think we're here now. We're dealing with what's in place now, and I think we need to look at, well, what are we going to do? Let's move forward. What happened in the past has happened in the past, so let's go forward now.
I think we could get really, really misguided, really quick. My great-grandmother smoked a pipe of tobacco every night before she went to bed. I can remember when I was just a little guy and she smoked. I never got a quota. I don't believe I need to get a quota for me to have tobacco. Every time you play games with that system to try and get what you think you need, you lose. Because that didn't come from that system. It came from your grandmother. It came from my grandmother. And why we can't get that through our heads is beyond me.
Go ahead, sorry.
There are a group of us that have actually been meeting since the two-row had their C-10.
Can I give you the mic?
There are a group of us that have been meeting actually since the two-row had their their C-10 presentation a month ago. And it's a group of the manufacturers, the actual owners within the community. And we've been talking about what is it that we can do as the owners of the business operating within this community, and knowing that it's a cornerstone. It's not the end-all and be-all for the community, but it is one of the cornerstones of the community now. And in terms of employment, that we're employing our own people, in terms of the contributions that individuals as business owners are making to the community, and just in terms of the wellness of the community, and part of that economy, the wellness of the economy of the community. So we've been actually meeting and we've been asking these same questions amongst ourselves. What can we do as owners of these businesses? We are manufacturers. What can we do? Because we see how this could be very detrimental to our community. We've actually progressed a lot since the tobacco trade started. We've progressed, and we're thriving on it. And we want to see that continue. And we want to be able to continue to give back to the community in doing that. So we've been talking, and we know we need community input and support as well. We've been pondering how do we get that, and we actually saw this as an opportunity in being able to come forward and actually be here to hear what the community had to say. We weren't actually planning on talking. It wasn't on the list for us to do. We just wanted to hear what the community had to say, and how we can protect ourselves from this bill. Because it's going to hurt us, whether we believe it or not. When it comes, it will hurt us. And we don't want that to happen. So we've been talking about a whole range of things. And one of them is the Kahnawake law. Just today, I got a notice, and it was from the council at Kahnawake. The actual law that they drafted has gone forward to their council for approval. So they are ahead of us in terms of that, but they're actually willing to work with us as well, because we did get a message from them saying that if we want to learn from them in the process that they had to go through, that they're willing to share that with us. So we are actually planning on meeting with them. We haven't set when, but that's one of the things that we're going to do. So we are talking about self-regulating this industry, which again would be good. It's in the interest of the community, because if we self-regulate, then that's us looking after our own. Self-regulate in terms of the production, because we go right from the field right to the store and to the customer. Our customer base really isn't the community, it's the outside communities. That's where our customer base are. And there are people that are on fixed incomes too. So there's a mutual benefit there. If you read a lot of the documents that the government has out right now, their bottom line is they just want a piece of the pie. They want cash because they know they're losing cash. That's what this bill is all about, is the money that they're losing, because we're not paying the taxes on that. So, I don't know. I guess if you have questions for us, we don't have secret meetings, but we are having private meetings as well with the owners, just so that we can actually talk amongst ourselves, similar to how this is happening, how this meeting has to happen. We do know we're going to have to come back to the community at some time to show you what we're doing. You know, we're looking at a draft terms of reference for our group, for the work that we see that needs to be done. And we do need to share that. We also know that we need support not only from the community, but we need support from both councils in this community, both the elected council and the Confederacy Council.
Who are you going to get to all the legal documents that you're going to meet? Is that going to be council or hereditary chief?
We're looking at doing it ourselves. But we're not looking at doing it in isolation, because we know we can't. We need, when I say support, it doesn't mean that we want them to do it for us. We know we're going to need community input in the documents. Yeah, we're definitely going to need legal expertise. We know that. And that's one of the reasons why we want to go and meet with Kahnawake to see what process they went through. They've got a huge document, and it's really, really good. Will it all fit here? No, in our community, so we'll have to adjust. You know, even if we took that as our base, we'd still have to adjust it.
If we did that, what they're doing, would that protect us from C-10?
That's what we would expect, because we then have a law that would protect us. That's our law, and then it basically our thought is that it makes their law unimposable within our territory, because we are self-regulating.
Will you be able to get that done before Bill C-10 is passed?
Well, we're giving ourselves less than 3 months to do it. So we might have interim measures. I like timeframes. I don't know. We've only met 4 times. So, and we've actually moved quite fast.
I don't think it's going to protect us from C-10 if we give our own law. I mean, it's 2 separate things. So we can't confuse them. You know, we can move forward on it. If we want to move forward in doing our own law, I don't think that C-10 is going to, the government won't recognize ours, and they'll still try and impose C-10.
And we actually do see that.
We'll all try and stop C-10.
And we see C-10, regardless of what we do on the law side, we see them still trying to push C-10 further.
No.
And to answer, there was another question about, is there components of C-10 that are actually contraband? There actually are. There are cigarettes that are coming from China in freighters, and they go to seaports in other parts of Canada. That is contraband. But that's not what we do. There are cigarette factories in Toronto producing cigarettes, and in other places off the territory. That's contraband. What we do isn't contraband. That's how we see it.
But the government does not want to make a distinction though, right?
No, they don't.
They want to call it all contraband.
Yeah, and if you look at the documents, there's a lot of information online. If you read there's the RCMP did a contraband strategy, and they've done reports, and out of those reports, there's backup documents that support the bill. There's 5 categories where they say it applies, C-10 would apply directly to First Nations people. And one is this product's manufactured on the reserves.
One other thing, and I had talked to Chris earlier about this. We need information from people, and I know Chris has given me some information, and anybody else that has information about how many people are employed in the industry, you know, how much, I guess, wealth is generated. We need statistics, and so that when we go up and meet with the people on Parliament Hill, we can say, look, this is how many people are going to lose their jobs. So, you know, they're not going to give us any money. Let's go back to the beginning. They came here, they took our land. We welcomed them in, we made them feel at home. And I use that analogy with a lot of people because I'm going out doing a lot of speaking engagements. It's like me coming to visit your house, Jim. And you let me in your house, and then all of a sudden I got you in the back. You got to go live in the back porch. And you stay in that little postage stamp. You can't go off. That's what it's like. That's what that's what the analogy to tell people is. They came here, we welcomed them in, and all of a sudden they think that they're the owners of this land, but they never compensated us. But at the same time, they are giving us some money to the federal government because they have the fiduciary responsibility to do it. They don't give us enough. They don't give us enough for health. They don't give us enough for education. They're continuing to cut back. Every year we're getting cut back. I was just at a meeting last week on non-insured health benefits, which covers health, which covers your eyes, your dentist, medical transportation, your teeth. Now, when I was young, and those of you that are my age, you know, will know this, like Doc, when we were young, we used to just go to the doctor and everything was covered, no questions asked. Now you got to get prior approval, you got to pay for this drug, or you got to pay for this equipment because they keep cutting back. Even though they haven't compensated us for our land yet, they're still cutting us back. So we're forced to go and make our own money. We have to generate our own revenue in our own community, and that's what we're doing with the tobacco industry. And so now they don't want us to do that either. They want that money too. So how in the hell are we supposed to look after ourselves? That's going to be one of the arguments I want to take, and that's why I need the information from people as to how many people are employed, how many, what's going to be the effects. I need statistics and numbers that we can throw at them. You know, and then they won't settle our land rights. They won't come back to the table on our land rights because they said, and I think I've said this many times to people, they say, well, you're a divided community. We don't know who to talk to. And so they use that as an excuse not to even talk to us at all. Because we have a proposal out there, it's called a global solution, which we gave to them to say, you know you don't have enough money to pay for us for what you've done, because it's in the trillions. But here's a global solution. Just do direct transfer payments to us for education, for health, for infrastructure for our people, and we can look after everything. Just do it year by year, much the same as you transfer to the province. That's our global solution. Well, just about 6 weeks ago, I got a letter back from the Minister of Indian Affairs saying, your global solution is unrealistic. Use our specific claims process. We're not going to use their specific claims process because through that, they want to extinguish our rights, and there's a max of $150 million on what they'll give you in claims. So, you know, we've got a lot of work to do, and we got to get our community together. You know, and I keep saying that. If people look at the big picture here in our community, we're the largest, and if we were to join together and we went to Ottawa together, can you imagine how powerful we could be? Because they're using the divide and conquer. And as long as we allow them to, they're going to keep doing that. And that's why I think when, Sandy was talking about the schools earlier, we really need to come together on this. You know, and we need to help. There's a role for everybody, I think, and you got to figure out what those roles are. But you know, and I know the role of council right now is to go up to Parliament Hill and start hammering away at the politicians. But we need information from you, and we need those figures, we need those statistics that's going to help us, you know, present the arguments to them. So if anybody has any, I got something, Chris, anybody else got any information, just drop them off.
Do you have the backing of the Confederacy right now? Are they willing to go with you up to Parliament?
Well, I've been trying to, when I was still on council, I offered to meet with them, and they're not meeting with me. I'm working with some people to see if we can't get together. I've met with some other groups. I've met with the Mohawk workers. I've met with the Men's Far. I'm meeting with a job to see if we can't get together with the Confederacy. But so far, we haven't met. And when I was sitting as a councillor, I suggested that maybe a small group of us get together to begin with. And the last I heard, when it was presented at the Confederacy, it was sent out the door. So we're going to keep trying, you know, but you guys are all community members. You should be encouraging them to meet with us too.
Go inside.
Well, I think the only way, sort of everybody's here tonight, the only way we're going to probably do it is get those guys, like you told them, like you said, Mohawk workers, the council, and the Confederacy get together. Now, the Confederacy is almost stupid because we're all in this thing together, and then when something happens, people go running to the Confederacy and get their input, and the Confederacy says, yeah, go ahead. But the government doesn't recognize nobody here except the council. And also, you got a lobbyist up in Ottawa. Why don't you put him? You pay him up there. Why don't you make him work a little bit? Because the lobbyist got to be able to contact those senators, you know, those public, you know, the government people and the Ontario people. What is he doing? I never hardly hear anything of what he's doing. I don't think he's worth the money he gets. And also, when Roberta was on with the chief, we went to Ottawa at one time, and this was a pretty important thing we were fighting. That and the buses and all went down there, and we got all together. That seemed to work because that bill didn't pass. So now we could probably do the same thing. But I'm still thinking, is the lobbyist a lawyer?
What lobbyist?
I don't know, it's a Thomas guy or something. Anyway, he was here.
We did have
meeting. I was here.
Richard Paulus lives in Ottawa.
Paulus, yeah.
Richard Paulus lives in Ottawa. He does he doesn't work for us full time. We pay him as we use him. So we're going to use him and we're going to pay him. Yes, we are going to get him to work for us.
The government paid him?
He's a private consultant. He gets paid on, goes out and does contract work. So we're using him, and when we need him, then we'll pay him.
Because you gotta remember,
he is based in Ottawa. He has the connections on Parliament Hill, and he is one person who will be looking to get meetings set up for us.
Well, did you talk to him and see what he's doing?
Well, he's not working for us right now.
Who's he working for?
He's working for himself. I don't know. He does contract work for different people.
Well, don't get him anymore then.
When I want him to work for me, then he will work for me. Then we'll pay him.
He's not a lawyer.
No, we'll use him.
Now, you've got to remember, whoever's paying him has all the say.
Yeah.
And if you're paying him, you have all the say.
Yeah, he knows. But, yeah, thank you. No, we are going to get him working on it. We got to pick a week.
Well, I won't.
What I plan to do is try and get a week where he can get as many meetings for us as he can during the whole week. Because I know I did that before I was on council. I used to organize those things on Parliament Hill, and I remember at one time Six Nations did one with Akwesasne jointly. We spent the whole week on Parliament Hill talking about health and education. And I think at that time we had people going on Teams. We had about 80 meetings that happened in that 1 week, or is it 1 week or 2 weeks? Some of the councillors that were here, Carla, he took part in that. That's the kind of thing we need to do. And you're right, Richard lives in Ottawa. That's why we use him when he's there. And we'll pay him when we use him. He's not on like a full-time
Well,
with
make
us.
sure that he does what you tell him to do.
Oh, he will, yeah, he will. I will. He'll set the meetings up for us, and then we'll go in and deliver the message.
So I say, if you pay him, make sure you get your money's worth. That's what I say.
Gotta get something out of your money.
Something out of your money.
They have a bunch of buses that last time we went up there. It seemed to work, but the bill didn't go through.
Oh, that's something maybe the council can take into consideration for sure.
Well, you get the other reserves.
Some of the other councillors could get up and speak to you. On the bus thing, yes, we've done buses. I just want to go back to the last real battle we had that we won. Was what we did win on the First Nations Education Act, because that's dead, but now there's another one called First Nations Control of First Nations Education Act. But a few years ago was the HST. And I think Chris was right when she said that Bill C-10 is all about taxation. It is. It's all about taxation and the government wanting money, to get money out of the sale of the cigarettes. And that's one of the main points that we want, taxation. And that's what it's all about. And they're using it as contraband, saying organized crime, young people smoking. They're using all these other excuses. But on the HST, you know, when we go shopping up in Brantford, we don't have to pay the PST portion. We are the only province in this country that is exempt, where First Nations people are exempt from PST. The only one. Everybody else all across the country pays it. I used to live in Saskatchewan at one time, and they didn't pay it. But then I think they made a deal for casinos. So when we get people coming from other provinces to visit us, they're surprised that they can get their PST exemption, other First Nations people. And that agreement's going to expire next year. So we're already putting committees together to renegotiate that. So, you know, that was a big fight we had, and we had buses that went up to Ottawa then. But you know, part of the problem, I think Helen just went out, but I know that when we take buses to Ottawa, we've paid for 2-3 buses, and they're not cheap. They leave here at 5 a.m. in the morning, and half the time, they're not full. You can't get anybody to get on them and go up there. So, you know, we can do all that, and we do all that. We make those arrangements. And somebody on Parliament Hill told me at one time, if you want to have a rally on Parliament Hill, you've got to make sure I can't even see one blade of grass out there. We need to have that whole lawn full of people before we're going to have, you know, make a dent on what they're doing. But, you know, that's the strategy. But we can bus. I think Floyd's been up there. We take, you know, those buses haven't been full, have they, Floyd? They haven't been full. You know, and then we're going to have to go in that battle again on the HST. So we'll keep at it.
Thanks, Chief. Are there other questions and comments? Or is it open? Go ahead.
We put together not only the Bill C-10, but now they're talking about bringing in the property tax, taxing your paycheck. Can we put all of this stuff together and fight it all at one time instead of, you know, having to keep going back and back to the government? And I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can fight all of this tax business at one time.
Sure that the council's battling multiple issues. Go ahead.
The problem is that they introduced them separately. You know, like there was, I think, last year when Iowa War started, there was a whole bunch of them at once. That was called an omnibus bill. But they've introduced like the safe water one separately. 2 weeks later, or 2 months later, they'll introduce another one. A little while later, they'll introduce another one. So they just have us going because we don't know when they're going to introduce them. And the property tax one is one we hear rumors about. They haven't been introduced yet. It's called the fee simple legislation. If that one comes through, that's going to be really bad, because then that means that they will try and change our land into fee simple, which means you can sell it to anybody. So we don't want that. So that hasn't been introduced yet. So, you know, we can put that out there when we meet with the parliamentarians and say, yes, we can say we're opposed to it, but it's not been introduced yet. But then once it gets introduced, then we have to start fighting it even harder. So That's just how they do it, and because as I said earlier, it's a majority government that's got the numbers and can do whatever they want. And the other thing I'd like people here to do is with Phil McColeman. He's a conservative from Brantford. Mind you, he's a very nice man, and he's helped us a lot on a lot of issues. But when it comes down, and I've had this conversation with him many times, when it comes down to legislation affecting us, not affecting people in Brantford, nobody but us, he should be voting the way that we tell him to, not the way that the Prime Minister does. Because we already know he's come out, I think there was an interview in the Two Road Times that he's supportive of Bill C-10. I don't read the turtle. No, I don't.
Would you yell at me about what I write?
No, it's just because Helen emails me and tells me what you put in your paper.
Well, at least Helen's fine. I'm supporting a local
Anyway.
place, I might add.
Anyway, that's what happens. So, you know, I think we need to tell Phil that he should be voting the way that we tell him. On the First Nations Education Act, that's not going to affect the kids going to school in Brantford. Or this one's not going to affect the people in Brantford. That's what I'm saying. I keep telling that, and that's a kind of a constant battle him and I have. And, you know, like he's the MP for Brant, and our reserve happens to be located in that area. So I keep telling him that. And I guess maybe what we need to think about, if he's not going to do that, if in the next federal election, is bite the bullet and go vote him out.
Go ahead, come back.
The other thing that Phil did, is he gave evidence at the standing committee in support of this bill. And my guess is he did it without any discussion with Ava or anybody at council.
I think we have to remember as well, we have you know, taken ownership of our problems and taken solution and taken action is something that we have capability of. When you look at what happened with the natural gas system here, well, the natural gas system wasn't what it is today at one time. Not when George Heslop was running it. The pipes were above the ground. The federal government would just hand the contract over to him, and he would go about his business and just manage the gas system here in the res. And we'd hear complaints, pipes above the ground. Well, when I was a kid on Fifth Line, growing up on Fifth Line, didn't know any difference, but we'd be walking down them pipes, hammering on them pipes. Thought that was just a great thing to do, something to do. And then as I, got older and realized this is a very, very unsafe system. It was very, very unsafe. So the communities, our community took responsibility, took ownership. We told the federal government, you're not doing a good job. You're not going to just simply give the contract to George Heslop anymore. Our natural gas system is going to be community driven. We have our own board of directors. We have a system that's safer. The pipes are buried. You know where the pipes are. It wasn't always like that. When I think of Grand River Employment and Training, it reminds me of the same thing. We have our own board of directors. We have our own. We don't have to knock on Brantford's door anymore for employment and training. We set our path. We determine what's our priorities, and we deliver. We have our own staff. We have our own board. There's more accountability right here locally. So we have capacity. We have the ability. We can do it. And I'm encouraged to hear that the owners are talking about ownership of the problem, talking about solutions, and putting some action behind their words. And that's what we're looking for tonight. And I think that the discussion is good. It's a good starting point. Chief has said a lot. We appreciate that. And she mentioned some other councilors here that are with us, and our council representatives. They sit in the meetings year in and year out, week in and week out, and we hear a lot of the discussions, a lot of problems, a lot of time they spent with looking at legal opinions. And I want to encourage them to maybe express what's on their mind as well. I'm not sure how many we have here. Go ahead, Seth.
She was talking about taxes, and she was saying, well, it probably is the main thing here, because, you know, with the tax, property tax, and everybody, you can see all the towns around, it's just spreading right out, because they need more tax money. But when you're talking about taxes, I've been about 20 years fighting the revenue in Canada. And also, what I want to talk about is the safety of our reserve here, to keep it as it is with especially with our grandkids and all, to stay the way it is. Because the problem with here too is we're letting other people come in here and make money and make profits, and they live off the reserve. I mean, the council should have some agreement with the supplier. Maybe even have to give them permission to come on the reserve and put the gas here. Now, if he's a native guy and he owns part of this company, he's still got to pay taxes over there. What does he do about taking advantage of our rights? Because the gas rights here are different. They're unique here. They have to be guarded. But when you let somebody else come on, some other white guy come on, and then he's making money. Esso was here. Look at the size of that company. Did we give him the permission to put the Esso signs up? Did we give him permission to use the Indian, the system that we have here? Now, the system we have here sure can be used by a native, but how do we know if the native wants 51% or not? See, that's the trouble. That's what the council's got to do. They got to find that out, and it's a tough job. Off the reserve, they know how to check you out. You know, now these guys coming out of reserve like this, starting these businesses, what do we know? Like I was talking to a guy that put a system in here for a guy. It was an air pump system in some factories on the reserve here. And I was talking to him, and he was telling me that he put the system in, and the guy from Korea paid him. Now, you know, when something like that's going on, we're eroding our reserves. We should not let that happen.
I'm not sure, Chief, whether council's entertained anything like that or not.
Well, I'm just wondering how the white guy get away with doing that. We should be talking to these people and give them permission to come on the reserve and put the gas in.
That's something the community wants council to do, then that community needs to step up to. Because we don't know who's all, you know, what you're talking about. Exactly. You know, we don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's my business.
But if you want regulations or our own laws developed to say that, you know, certain percent people from off reserve can't come here and do business, and that's something we need to hear back from the community.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
my business is all native. I'm in no partnership with nobody, but how do we know what these other guys are doing?
Well, we don't. I don't.
No. Well, you should have something to know.
All right, so.
How are you going to do it?
I think there was a question. Go ahead, sir.
Talking about natural gas, and he was talking about natural gas on going to don't pay tax on it. How are we going to protect it when this here tax is going to be taken away from us next year? Our GST and all this. When we have no gas wells on as reserve, we buy our gas from the white man. Now how the hell are we going to protect that? We're going to pay tax.
Paying tax on gas, I'm not sure about that one, but
natural gas. We got no gas well. We have no gas here.
I haven't heard about paying tax on natural gas at this point.
Look at delivery charge. It's more than the gas is worth. That's what you're paying. Same as hydro. You're paying delivery. More than the damn hydro's worth. That's a tax.
Barry, go ahead.
As far as I understand, the issues that we're dealing with now really go back to a decision by the predecessor council, if you will. It decided that we were going to go into economic development. And that's a benchmark under the protocol of the Indian Affairs, where there's accountability to them. It's a whole process that got set up. Unfortunately, I don't know of any successful band council business. I've heard of band councils out west who have skiing lodges and great vineyards where they produce their own wine. But there is no business here run by band council. And yet the previous band councils chose to take this route of economic development. So I think whatever you need to do is go back and rethink that. And what are you really doing to develop an economy on the territory? I think that's why it's gone private. We're under economic pressure, and the band, purportedly by legislation, is supposed to take the lead. Never did. So we're in a real mess because of previous administration. And I think you really have to look at the intent of that legislation and where those steps are made and what the ultimate goal is. That's where you need an analysis from a constitutional lawyer. I really have to caution you, this is not a single issue. This is the coming together of Canada's Indian policy for the last 200 years. You think Canada is 100 years old? It's not. It's the mindset to get rid of the indigenous people. And if you don't accept that, and the band council can't accept that, so be it.
Standing here listening to you, Larry, you're a very intelligent person. And what I'm also thinking is what you can do to help us. We need your help. You know, we're look at this.
I gave you the answer earlier on. What did your grandmother do? That's the justification. That's your legal defense. That's your way of life. And if we aren't the same people as our generations gone by, our grandparents, then we don't deserve any of this so-called status. Love your children, love your ancestors. That's what it comes down to.
Thanks. There was another question back over here? Someplace? Over here? Somewhere over here?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm for manufacturing on reserve, and I don't know, there's about 200 people that probably work for us. Our boss owns a lot of businesses, not just cigarettes, and Ava wanted numbers. There's going to be 200. That means a lot of children, a lot of families. I have to admit, I'm not living well, but I'm living good, you know, and back to cigarettes, I guess, and still see him here. And I think I want to know, Chris, is everybody that's in manufacturing on the same page as you, or is there a division there?
The group that we've been meeting with is on the same page, and we're actually open to, because we know we don't have everybody, and we haven't been able to get, whether it's getting a hold of everybody or just, you know, it's word of mouth. That's how we got started, so.
Okay, back on that. Probably said that even if we do get our own on, our own off, you said that it's still not going to stop Bill C-10 from coming. If we do get our own on, then what's that good for then? They're just, take it anyway.
It's a good defense to say we're regulating it ourselves, controlling it ourselves, policing it ourselves.
Just to give us that time?
Well, that's the defense we can put up there, that we're going to look after it ourselves, so don't bother passing this guy. We have to use every argument we can to try and get them to stop it. And saying that we have the inherent right to do so.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead, sir.
I'd just like to say on the issue of numbers about people that are employed in the direct tobacco industry, this issue doesn't just affect that. I run a business and have 55 employees that would be severely impacted if the tobacco industry fell. So it goes broader than just people who work for direct manufacturing. I run a security business, and you know, we are employed by some of the manufacturers on reserve. And I have a lot of families that are employed by my business that would probably lose their jobs as well. So it doesn't just impact the people in manufacturing.
I'll help the chief out.
Thank you very much, Helen. Helen's always good for a few words.
I think we left her on a hot seat long enough. No, I really want, I just want everybody to really know what a serious situation this is. And I can appreciate everybody trying to work on their own law and doing that, but we have to remember, not cigarettes, but tobacco is going to be part of the Criminal Code of Canada. And our Six Nations police are obligated to enforce the Criminal Code of Canada. So whether we have our own law or not, my opinion, and this is my own opinion, whether we have our own law or not, the police still have to enforce the Criminal Code of Canada. And the only thing that's going to stop the police from doing that is if Chief Glenn says, no, we're not going to do that to our people. And if you read the Turtle Island News this week, that's what he's saying in the paper. He's taking a stand that he's not going to fight against his own people. But he's also risking, by saying that, he's probably risking the funding for the Six Nations police. He's probably risking the whole police force. We could lose our police because of it. And then the OPP or the RCMP would come in here. But he's got a lot of good stuff in the Turtle Island News. I'm encouraging everyone to read it. And in that Turtle Island News as well, one of the police officers said, if it comes down to this, he's not going to fight against his own people, he'd quit first. So they're in a real dilemma too. Somebody had made reference to the fact that, well, we have our Six Nations bingo hall, and they're not doing anything but the bingo hall. The bingo hall is not part of the criminal code. The bingo hall is just not licensed. But this is going to be included in the Criminal Code of Canada. So that makes the big difference with this bill that they're presenting. It's not anything we've ever had before. And to me, it's very, very serious and very, very dangerous. But we need to plan. And one of the things I'd really like to see if we could get somebody to do it is get somebody to come and maybe do some kind of a, I don't know, a video or something to try and get it on TV. And this gentleman back here, he's right. There's a lot of spin-off businesses that come from the tobacco industry. And they employ a lot of people. So it's not just the cigarette part of it. We need the outside community to understand that this is really impacting our community, because it's not just the cigarette industry that's going to be hurt, it's all the other businesses that have sprung up because of it. They're going to be hurt too. They're going to be out. And all the people working for them, like this gentleman said he employs 55 people, just his business. How many other businesses on reserve? Like I know Nancy and Demon, they have different kinds of businesses and they employ a lot of people. So we need to really look at getting to the outside community. This is what's going to impact us. This is how it's going to hurt us. This is the number of people that, and the families. You've got a guy working might have 10 kids, you know? And I think we need to try maybe get something on the TV, or maybe that 2020 would come down here and do something about it. I don't know. Or what else does? There's another show that does stuff. They might come down here and do one to say this is how it's going to impact the Six Nations Reserve or something. I know a lot of people don't like the fact that it's tobacco, but the fact is it's tobacco. That's what it is. So anyway, that's my suggestion. And I'll go lobby to Ottawa if we have to. I'll go and do whatever I got to do. Carrie Lynn Brandt made a really good suggestion that I'm going to bring up to council. So we need all kinds of suggestions of what we can do, what we need to do to try and get the message up there. So we really appreciate it if somebody thinks of something to come and say, hey, maybe you should try and do this or whatever. Oh, Liza's going to put a sheet at the back if anybody wants to sign up for a contact list. I guess if you want us to contact you or get involved, or if you have any ideas, call somebody on the phone, do something. I send my email.
When we gather our life from the earth, agriculture, the outside will understand that. The bureaucrats and the politicians and parliamentarians also know it, but they don't want us to have that liberty. So they make these laws, and they put it in the terms of contraband. It's not contraband, it's an agricultural product. I don't know, any sucker tobacco in tobacco country?
I did.
As long as we were slaving in the field, it was all right for Indians to be involved in the tobacco industry. As soon as we start getting the lucrative end of it, growing and manufacturing laterally, integrating that agricultural product into our economy, all of a sudden it's a no-no. You've got to understand what they're doing. And our defense is always, what did our grandmothers do?
Thanks, Ed. Okay, any other questions, comments? Al's coming up.
This is very, very disturbing. It used to be that it was said through colonialism that kill the Indian and the child. What Canada is trying to do is kill Indians. They know we're very populous. We have many people now. They can't afford us. They don't want to take care of us. And we don't want them to take care of us. We know how to take care of ourselves. And that's what you're doing with the industry that you've certainly planned here and certainly taken place in this community. I think this is war. This really is war on our people. We need paint. Men, we need to get your paint on again. It is no longer just the children anymore that they've taken away. They've taken our medicines, as was mentioned. So that involves also our teeth and eyes. Everything that's really important for us to live. So we're sitting here exchanging ideas. And the chief and others are asking, what are we going to do about it? We just going to continue to talk through the papers at each other and continue to be divided? Or are we going to work together as the Declaration of Unity is trying to do? It's going to be interesting to see what the Confederacy is going to do. We need everyone signing that paper. Just like you had the petition that the Thursday night meetings were doing. We need people to sign those papers. We need to come together. We need to survive. And we know elected council, certainly it's the system that's there. And the system is there because of the dollars. So how are we going to fight this bill so taxes and the responsibilities of the government continues until we're strong enough? We need to do those things. I'm counting on the men myself. I have great confidence in the men. We need more men's fire. We need more Mohawk workers. Or Grand River Mohawks now. We need that. So I'd like to hear from more men myself. What are you going to do? We women are alongside you. What are you going to do? You're the leaders. You're the braves. You've always taken care of us. So what are you going to do? And I think the presence, we need our presence on Parliament Hill immediately. Like Ava said, very disappointing. When you fight education, and maybe it's not the right education that we want, but once we fight education and see it's intact, then our people will start to, hopefully start to think differently, where they know who they are. And the funding will come from the people. And elected council is trying through economic development. It may be not what all of you want, but what are you going to do? When the government sits there and will not settle land claims, what are you going to do? Just sit there? Elected council would be criticized if they just sat there. They're trying to move. It may not be all the right moves, but they're trying. So I'd like to hear more from men. Some of you are sitting in the audience. I expect you to get up here, and so does everyone else. Larry's been talking a lot and voicing his opinion, and Cyril, he's voicing his opinion, and others. But I think we need that presence. We need the war paint, and I don't mean lipstick and eyeshadow. I mean war paint. So step right up.
Thanks, Norma. Appreciate it. Good hand from Mel. Very well said, Bill. Thank you very much. Okay, the Braves are going to speak now. Waiting for the Braves to speak.
I'll have to take them by the hand.
Bring them on up, yeah. Bring them on up. What time is it now? What time is it? 9 o'clock. I think people are getting sleepy here. Yeah, time to wake up. That's Melville references. But it's good to hear that there's some action being taken. As Chris was indicating, that the owners are meeting and they're talking about solutions and they're talking about approach. So that's encouraging. Data. I don't know whether there's a possibility for the council can set up some kind of system to at least to begin to start collecting data. Data that's I guess voluntarily offered to the council. Yeah, definitely you have to have data. It's good to have employment and other data that's going to be a benefit when you go to the table and you present your findings. And if you put forth your argument, you definitely need data to back that up.
I do have some, so if anybody's got information, they want to drop off, like statistics or anything, you can just drop them off at the office. The administration office, or else put your name on the thing and you can follow up with me. But the more statistics and information you have, the better it's going to be for us. And we can compile it. Don't worry about what it looks like. Just give us the numbers and we'll put it all together. So the sooner the better.
Can you get that out to the community then, that that's what you need and that's what you're looking for? Because if I wasn't at this meeting tonight, I wouldn't know that that's what you needed. And if I didn't have the radio on CKRZ that day, I wouldn't know that that's what you needed. So if those numbers are what you need, then maybe you need to get that out to the community, that we need those numbers, we need the statistics to go to fight this.
Would there be a main contact sheet for council, like for anyone who wants to volunteer to give some information?
Probably Eliza.
Eliza Montour? Okay.
If you don't want to email, if you want to email, it's just Eliza Montour at sixnations.ca. No. Oh, political advisor. That's her title. Or any of your counselors, you can give the information to any of your counselors. The email address is just their name and then at sixnations.ca. Full name?
Council website?
The council website, yeah, council website is www.sixnations.ca. But we'll try and get the word out as fast as we can, and we'll look to you to spread the word too.
Go ahead, sir.
I work at a manufacturer too, and there's 31 people that work there. Not just work there, but they need that job. Tough times.
So, what, it's not, I think as Michael said, it's not just like the 31 people, could be like 31 families. Or it could be like a lot of families, which is more than actually 31 people being affected.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff we need to.
Yeah. My question is, I don't know a lot about the law and all that kind of stuff, but why is this not a human rights issue?
It could be.
Why is it not the UN can get involved? And
Just something your lawyers have commented on?
I think it is. I think we're just going to do more research. And as I said, we're probably going to bring it up at the UN in May. And it probably could be a human rights case, which we could take. I know there's a human rights case right now on child welfare, saying that they're not providing enough funding for child welfare, and the woman that's doing that is Cyril Crackerjack, Cindy Gladstone. So, we can get advice from her too, but, I think it can make a complaint to the human rights.
sure, especially, within centuries we've been working with tobacco, and all of a sudden it's a no-no. It's insane.
Is council looking at hosting a follow-up meeting, Chief?
Yes.
Go ahead, Helen.
Sandy, I think what would be a good idea, I really think we need to get somebody working on a community profile to include the tobacco. Like, I really like what Larry said when he said, our people worked in tobacco all those years, and a lot of people worked in tobacco all their lives. And nobody said anything when they were working and running the tobacco fields in Delhi and all over the place. But as soon as we start digging into the manufacturing side of it and start making money, then it becomes a big issue. And I really think if we did a community profile showing the history of tobacco in our community, even though we weren't making it then, we were certainly all working with it, because I used to go out and sell tobacco. And really get that out to the broader public. I think that we need to do something like that. If I wasn't on council, I could probably do it myself, but I'm a counselor, so and then use that community profile whenever we're going out and trying to lobby against it, or trying to see if we can get it on the TV or something, I don't know.
Maybe I'll ask Chris if she'd make a comment on whether, at least as a starting point, whether they would be willing to look at least starting the groundwork for a community profile when it comes to employment.
We actually already have been trying to put some information together, just even with the people that we've been meeting with, just to give you an idea of some of the stats that we've been able to pull together in the last couple of weeks. We estimate, and these are just estimates, so newspapers, please be careful when you report this. But we're estimating that there's at least 2,000 people directly employed by the industry. We haven't done the indirect connection yet, but we're looking at annually salaries in the 60 million plus range for people working in the industry, if we're just using some averages. We are actually going to try and pull some more information together on that, so we don't mind working with people. So if you have information that you want to send, that's fine too. We would definitely accept whatever information people want. So, but that's just to give you a rough idea of how much money we're talking. And I would suspect that that's a very low estimate right now. 60 million annually just in wages.
So you're meeting one public?
We will, but we're in the early stages of just strategizing too and trying to figure out what it is we want to do. And part of pulling stats together is to show when we have something to share that we actually can show what we're doing to the public so that we've got something to share. But that's why I said those are just very preliminary numbers. The other one, and I'm going to put Audrey on the spot, is TIPAC, I know, is pulling information together just in terms of some of the, and that's part of the TIPAC thing, the stats and the things that they were doing. So they also might be able to provide some assistance because we did use some of the TIPAC numbers when we were pulling our numbers together.
Okay, Audrey?
It's a good way to show how we do work together as a community. Like I really appreciate Chrissy's ability to put that out there to the community, but in a limited way, because just like you're coming here tonight, it's the first community meeting. You're just kind of like becoming familiar with it. So are we. We've been developing as individual businesses independently, and we've not, it's not like we're a big club where we hang out and talk about things, but we've done a lot of talking in the last little while as Chrissy's got up to date. Turtle Island Trade and Commerce has been around for about 5 years, since 2009. And what we are is people from the community who advocate that our businesses should be done according to our own ways here, our own great law, our traditions, our customary way and historical way of doing business. It's not exactly business, it's called trade and commerce. As a people, historically, and Larry, I think, would appreciate this because I love Larry's mind, how he thinks in terms of, where have we been and where are we going. We have always done trade and commerce. We've always done, like traded with tobacco and a number of other products and things that we've manufactured. And we've gone all over the place. That was before they had the borders from the U.S., calling the U.S. and Canada. We knew no borders. No borders. What we knew was this was Turtle Island and this is our home. And we traded with other peoples up and down the Great Lakes area, up and down the Mississippi, right down to Florida, the Seminoles in Florida. So Turtle Island Trade and Commerce really advocates for just what has been doing here, with one change. We need to start doing this collectively. Our businesses are starting up on our own money. We've got no grants. We've got no and this, I'm not just saying just for the tobacco people. I'm saying this for any business. TIPAC is aware that our businesses, when we start up, we don't go for grants and loans from anybody. We don't have capital. We can't go to the bank and say, well, give me money so I can build a shop. We've done it on our own. So what we're doing here, when we talk about the tobacco trade, they're coming together. They're going to decide, like, again, themselves as a group, because they're just getting used to being, talking and putting those things out there as collective. But believe me, nobody, not TIPAC or this group, is doing it in isolation. You've got people here that have been running businesses, trade included, that do it keeping in mind that this is a community that we have to help and we have to support. So, as Turtle Island Trade and Commerce, we're going to continue to advocate for businesses to be done according to our great law. One of the great principles is that we help each other. And that's what we've been doing. I can see from the talks with the tobacco people, they're of the same mind. A good mind towards the community. And that's what I see happening in the future. Like Larry has said, we have to know who we are from the past. We have to deal with problems like right here and now, which we're doing with Bill C-10. Then we figure out where we're going. The only thing that we need to do right now is we need to hold firm who we are. As somebody mentioned, it's a human rights issue. You're darn right it's a human rights issue. Remember the RCAP that started up, what, in the 1900s or something like that? It was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Nobody did a damn thing with it. They spent millions on it. And part of that study was to tell the Canadian governments that our people need to be free, independent, self-determining, and they need to have their own forms of economic development. Private, not government-driven, private. That's what we've got here. And we damn will fight to keep it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. So I guess, Helen, you're sorry, go ahead, son.
I just want to mention about you could solidify your relationship with those Mohawk workers, like you said, and the Confederacy, and get this myth away from us fighting each other. We've got to get rid of that. It's just that's what you, like you say, they just use that to keep us separated and keep us fighting each other. Now, you're the only voice that worked with the federal government. So why don't the others follow in? Because the others must be pretty stupid if they don't know that they got a channel to go through, you know, to get things done. And they could go through council here and get those things done. But we've got to develop a relationship with these other groups, a friendly relationship, not the one that's working together. And I don't know why they don't do it. It just seems to be almost stupid on their part, because they know that the government has got a split here. We've got to get together.
I agree we gotta get together. Saying that, I'm glad to see Jock in the back. But, you know, I can do all I can, but I need community members to talk to people too, to say we all gotta work together. I mean, I can say it till I'm blue in the face, but everybody's gotta keep saying it to everybody else. Eric?
Have you talked to any of the businesses off the reserve and make them realize how much money they're going to lose?
No, I haven't. That's a good idea. And I know I have had meetings with Chris and Audrey and whoever wants to meet with me. I know one of the things we did a couple of years ago was that leakage study, and all the money that people are making off, you know, off the reserve, all the businesses. So we're going to use that. I'm glad Audrey mentioned the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples report, because there's things in there that we can use. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So we're just, you know, taking all these ideas, and we're going to have to prepare, you know, our presentation for when we do go up to Ottawa, so that we have all of this stuff that's, you know, that we can use in our defense. But that's a good point too, talking to these other businesses and use that leakage study. But Desai's right, we all got to work together, and I look to all the community members to pass that on to other community members and to whoever, to say we do have to work together. You know, I've been saying it since, I don't know how long. Malcolm's been saying it, everybody's been saying it. So. People are tired of hearing me say it.
We talk about having allies, you know, the relationship is allies. So are there any out there that's...
yes, there are.
C-10?
That's one of the reasons, like, you know, we have a lot of conferences in this community where non-native people come. In fact, on Friday I'm going to be here. There's going to be one on health. A couple of weeks ago there was one on Heritage Canada, or Heritage Day it was called, and people from the Grand River Conservation Authority were here. And I'm always invited to welcome them to our community here, and then I get invited out to speaking engagements, and that's one of the main reasons, is to establish those allies, to let them know about our history, to let them know who we are, to get their support. So if they understand where we're coming from, then they can support us. But there are a lot of support groups out there. And I think if they know, you know, what we're really talking about, that they will support it. And they're voters. They're people that put these guys in office. Like there's Rotary clubs, there's churches, universities, students. I have a friend of mine who's a professor at Osgood Hall. Every year he brings his class of students down here. They're all training to be lawyers. He brings them down. He's been doing it for about 15 years. And he comes down and film on tour, shows them the big slides about our land claims, and that's the kind of things we need to do. So I'm trying to do a lot of that to get the message out. So Helen's giving me heck saying, you can't be going and do them all. I said, well, I think it's so important to get that message out and try and get support and allies out there so that, you know, they can help us, because they can write letters too. They can, you know, we can go out there and get them to help support us by sending letters or postcards or whatever.
So can you make a notice so we can give them to our customers so they can do that?
Yeah, there's
Like a
one,
draft that
there
wants
is a
to
draft back
come
there.
to our like non-native customers what this bill is and they can help
Yeah.
us fight it.
Yeah, we can do a lot, like a little release.
And how fast can this bill go through? You said fast, but how fast is fast?
I don't know, Eliza?
So it's not on the agenda for this week, and so this is I keep looking on the internet. So we'll do the third reading, and it can go through the Senate in days to weeks to months. It just depends on how fast they want to move it. So it's up to them. And then the other thing is that there's no date in the bill that says when it's going to come into force, so the government will set the date when it will come into force. Because it's changing the criminal code, they'll have to figure out how they're going to enforce it and what they're going to expect the Crown attorneys to do when people are charged. So we have, it's really going to be enough time being, right, for being aware and moving as fast as we can as well.
Has anyone tried to contact, like, say, Peter Vansbridge from the National? He does a lot of programming on native issues and that. And try and contact him and bring him up to date on what's going on with the tobacco industry and that. Right now, this week, the CBC is running a program on residential schools as part of the news program on a national. But he would be the one there's the news from Winnipeg, who's also worked for CBC. I believe so.
What's the gentleman's name, first one you mentioned?
Well, Peter Manfred. He runs the national on CBC. He does a lot of programming on native. Might be good to bring that to his attention, what's going on, what's coming down.
Thank you. Add that to your actions to-do list. Okay, so any other comments? Anybody else want to add? Still waiting for the raise, no?
Lock the doors, Sandy. We can have another meeting, just to keep people updated on what's going on, and I don't know what Chris is, well, we're working closely with her anyway, so we can keep in touch, and we'll call another meeting on what's going on, and I don't know about your meetings, if people are invited, or...
We will.
You will?
Yeah, but we're kind of not ready, we're still organizing.
Yeah.
But we will.
Okay. So, and then there's a sign-up sheet there, if anybody has information they want to give us, or you want, put your email address out there. We'll keep you updated as best we can, and we'll keep at the fight.
Go ahead.
Say, I never heard no one mention social media at all. And it seems like a lot of the problem is no one knows anything. Like, I would expect this place to be packed. How serious the problem is, but it's not. So I would encourage everyone to get on social media and do something, say something. That's all I want to add.
Okay, thanks. Good suggestion. Okay, if there's any other comments or questions, we'll adjourn, and feel free to stay around for a few minutes if you have any questions for the council or the chief, or if you want to just have a chat amongst yourselves. Thank you.